Guys, the Middle East card deck isn't just being reshuffled anymore. This time, the entire table is about to blow up. Over the last few days, behind-the-scenes leaks in Washington and Tel Aviv have become so wild that for the first time, the old World War III internet memes are starting to feel uncomfortably real. Today, we need to talk about the biggest hidden fracture in modern history, the massive unspoken clash between the US and Israel, the escalating crisis in Lebanon, and Donald Trump's absolute atom bomb of an uncensored rant that just leaked behind closed doors. Grab a drink and buckle up, because what's happening behind the mainstream headlines is a completely different script than what you're being told. Let's start with the core of the issue, the United States and Israel. We've grown up believing these two are an inseparable ride-or-die duo. But right now, the reality is entirely different. As Israel prepares for a full-scale ground invasion into Lebanon, a massive ultimatum just came out of the White House that left Israeli officials reeling. Reports indicate that Washington sent an incredibly blunt message: if you launch a full-scale war against Hezbollah in Lebanon, do not count on us to bail you out this time. We will freeze logistical and ammunition support. Now, think about this. Why? Did Washington suddenly turn into a global peace ambassador overnight? Of course not. It's pure pragmatism. US intelligence and military analysts know that a war in Lebanon won't just stay a local conflict. The moment Israel goes all in, Iran gets involved, Syrian factions move, Iraqi militias activate, and ultimately, the United States gets dragged into yet another massive multi-trillion-dollar regional war. With our economy already strained and our military focus split between Ukraine and the Taiwan Strait, the US establishment desperately wants to avoid getting sucked back into the Middle East sandbox. But does Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu care? Not even a little bit. And here is where the perspective gets cynical. Netanyahu's entire political survival depends on keeping this war going. The day the conflict completely ends, he faces massive domestic protests, official inquiries, and potentially a prison sentence over his long-standing corruption trials. So instead of listening to Washington's red line, Netanyahu doubled down, moving massive armored divisions right up to the Lebanese border. And right as this geopolitical deadlock is reaching a boiling point, Donald Trump enters the room. In classic Trump fashion, he flips the table, throws out diplomatic etiquette, and shatters the illusion of unity. During a closed-door donor event in Florida, the audio of which just leaked and is absolutely destroying the political news cycle, Trump let loose on the current administration's handling of the crisis. But then, he turned his sights directly on Netanyahu. Trump explicitly said, and I quote, "There is no leadership, it's total chaos. Bibi is doing whatever the hell he wants and our guys are just watching. It's a total shit show." But he didn't stop there. He dropped an absolute bomb of an expletive directly aimed at Netanyahu, saying, "He's playing us. The guy is burning down the world just to keep his own seat." Why is this a massive turning point? Think about it. Trump is historically viewed as the most pro-Israel president ever. He moved the US embassy to Jerusalem, recognized the Golan Heights. He's the guy Netanyahu openly praised for years. If even Trump, behind closed doors, is using that kind of language and expressing that level of exhaustion with Netanyahu's defiance, it proves one thing: the political elite in America, across both parties, are reaching a breaking point with this alliance. The narrative of perfect unity is officially dead. Now, let's look at the other side of this looming disaster: Lebanon. A lot of people online look at Gaza and think Lebanon will be the same story. Guys, it's not even close. Lebanon as a state is economically bankrupt, sure, but militarily, Hezbollah is a completely different beast. They possess hundreds of thousands of precision-guided missiles, advanced suicide drones, and a battle-hardened army that spent the last decade fighting in Syria. If Israel initiates a ground invasion, it's not a 3-day cleanup operation, it's a meat grinder. Even within the Israeli media, the panic is palpable. Retired generals are going on television openly saying, invading Lebanon right now is suicide. Missiles will rain down on the heart of Tel Aviv, and our power grid will be wiped out within 48 hours. Yet, political ambition is completely overriding military logic. When you look at social media comments right now, you see the usual two extreme internet-brained takes. On one side, people say, Israel is an unstoppable superpower. They'll flatten Lebanon and then wipe out Iran. No problem. On the other side, the hardcore conspiracy crowd says, this is all theater. The US and Israel are just putting on a show. It's a Danish-style rehearsed drama. Look, let's be real for a second. Both of these takes are completely blind to how geopolitics actually works. In international relations, there is no theater. There are only cold, hard interests. When the US tells Israel to stop, it's not because Washington suddenly became a humanitarian saint. It's because a regional war ruins US global hegemony and risks an economic collapse at home during a critical election cycle. And when Israel defies the US, it's because a desperate leader is prioritizing his own political survival over the strategic interests of his superpower patron. It's not a script. It's a runaway train with two drivers fighting over the steering wheel. A lot of people ask me in the comments, why do you always look for the hidden angle? Why can't you just take these official alliance statements at face value? Because if you take Washington or Tel Aviv press releases at face value, you're willfully blinding yourself. Trump's leaked rant is the ultimate proof of how helpless and angry the Western political establishment actually is behind closed doors. The system isn't working the way it used to. The global superpower can no longer restrain the client state it built and sponsored. So, where does this leave us? Looking at the board, there are three realistic ways this plays out. The US scales up the pressure, threatens to cut off the money and weapons entirely, and successfully forces Netanyahu to back down. The catch? This likely ends Netanyahu's career, so he will fight this scenario with everything he has. Israel completely ignores Washington, invades Lebanon anyway, and the US gets dragged into the conflict entirely against its will just to protect its own global credibility. This is the absolute worst case, highest probability danger zone right now. The backlash from Trump's leaked audio and growing public exhaustion forces the current administration to quietly freeze specific offensive weapon shipments before the upcoming election to avoid a massive voter backlash. If you want my honest take, the world is entering an incredibly unpredictable era of fractured power. We used to live in a world where when Washington spoke, everyone lined up. Today we live in a world where American leaders are reduced to throwing completely helpless, profane tantrums behind closed doors because they can't control their own allies. This power vacuum is dangerous, and the fallout from this specific US-Israel fracture is going to shape the next decade of global politics. Let's just hope the people in charge figure out a way to put out the fire before it sparks something we can't take back. Alright guys, we'll be keeping a very close eye on this dangerous chess match between Washington and Tel Aviv. But what do you think? Has America completely lost control of the situation? Or is Netanyahu actually going to burn down the world, just like Trump said? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I read all of them. If you want to see more breakdowns like this, make sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss these behind-the-scenes global updates. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.